Welcome to MasterMind Minutes, the leading podcast for franchisors, franchisees, and entrepreneurs of all types. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer, and we do it in minutes, not hours. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of MasterMind Minutes. My name's Gary Occhiogrosso. I am the founder of Franchise Growth Solutions, which most of you know is the premier franchise advisory, franchise development, and franchise sales organization in North America. Also the publisher of the National Franchise Newsletter. For those of you who are new to the podcast, MasterMind Minutes is a pretty simple concept. We have one guest, we ask one question or have one topic, and we do it in minutes, not hours. This way you can listen and get on with the rest of your day. Today, my guest is Michael Haith, and he is the CEO of Teriyaki Madness, which I'm sure most of you have heard of or perhaps even visited. As the CEO, Michael oversees Teriyaki Madness at both the corporate and franchisee levels, bringing nearly 30 years of experience as a franchisee, franchisor, investor, and supplier. His well-rounded background gives him a unique 360-degree perspective on what it takes to build and scale a successful franchise system. He has served as a franchisee of Pour La France, catering and managing partner at Maui Wowi Hawaiian coffee and smoothies. He founded franchise Sherpas, I hope I pronounced that right, and Raintree Franchise Sales Agency, which is an incubator and investment firm dedicated to partnering with and developing emerging franchisors. Now, throughout his career, he has mentored and invested in numerous growing brands, including Maui Wowi, as I mentioned earlier, Doc Popcorn, which I love, Kidcreate, and Raintree Franchise Sales Agency. Michael is passionate about empowering franchisees and driving sustainable system-wide growth. And Michael, I know that's kind of a short bio there, but thank you very much for being with us today. Before we get into our question, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about you and tell us more about Teriyaki Madness.
Wow, that bio wasn't quite so short. Yeah, you know what? I've been in franchising for a very long time, and had up to 5 or 6 businesses all at one time, and decided to sell them all and focus on one thing. And when I did focus on one thing, I found that all of my efforts really paid off. Teriyaki Madness, when I started to work with the founders, I had no idea what teriyaki even was. But they had created a brand with big, healthy, delicious food in a footprint that was small and affordable and readily accessible. And more than anything, I saw that the product as Asian food traveled really well. And back in 2012 or so, I realized that in the flyover states here, I'm in Denver, the only thing you could get was Asian food and pizza delivered to your house.
Yeah.
And I saw third-party delivery coming. And voila, with all of the advancements in DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of that, we've just exploded. Our food travels really well. It's delicious. It's healthy. The equation was just, it's chicken, it's fast casual. So all the boxes were clicked. I started working with the founders by being an investor and sitting on the board. Eventually, we started to get some traction, and the founders realized that a restaurant is different than being a franchisor. And I purchased the company in 2016. Proceeded to build a team, which is the hard part. And they brought with them all the systems and processes from other fast casual brands. Denver is a hotbed for fast casual. And we started putting in the technology, the apps and the websites and the ability to do third-party delivery. And COVID hit, and we had everything in place to be able to do delivery and do it well. And our customers all were passionate. And we just took off. So we went from 7 units when I bought the company in 2016 to we just broke 204 with another 127 in the real estate and construction pipeline, mostly with current franchisees who are expanding. and they're referrals of friends and family. So we are off to the races. We're having a great time.
Yeah,
Not a short rundown of what I've been doing, but there it is.
oh no, but it's interesting because when it's done right, when franchising is done right, that's the classic story. And I certainly have a couple of comments here that I want to just talk about. So, first of all, I agree. Asian food travels really well. We have a couple of fried chicken brands. You don't want to try to deliver fried chicken and still have it crispy. Actually, probably anything fried. So that's definitely an upstart on that. And of course, being ready. Of course, no one knew COVID was going to hit, but being ready for third party, excelling in that, unbearable environment. A lot of brands that were ready, they excelled in during COVID. You mentioned, and by the way, the growth is great, and I love that it's franchisees that are building more stores. A few years ago, you may know Charlie Watson, Charles Watson from
Sure.
Okay, so a couple of years ago, I had him on the program, and we were talking, and he said they were going to Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Of course, this was before the big buyout a year ago, 2 years ago. He said they were opening 200 and whatever, 80 stores, some number, right? And he said like 190 of them were with franchisees. And I think that's the ultimate testimonial to this, not only the success of the concept, but the success and the commitment and the care of the management team that guides the franchisees. If they feel confident in the management team, they're going to build more units because that's what good franchisees do. I tell folks all the time, how do you build it? And we'll kind of get to the question and something you mentioned, which I think is critical. You build it by doing three things. You access good real estate, you deploy capital, but the most important thing you need to do is you need to build a team or you're not going anywhere. Now, you mentioned your team, you mentioned how you had to build it, and that sort of leads us to the first question here, or the question, and that is your 30 years of experience. How has that influenced you in team building in general?
Yeah, the answer is after doing this for a very long time, excuse me, I've been able to just distill it into culture and building a community around that culture. Now, whether it's an internal team for the franchisor, or it's a franchise community within a franchise organization, we interview for culture. We interview to see if people see and value things the way that we do. And of course, we're going to make some misfires. But it's readily it's evident right out of the gate that this person really isn't going to match the culture, whether it be with work ethic or values or passion or whatever it may be that's important to that culture, which is a reflection of the leaders, by the way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So,
but that's the answer to building it. Is we don't even necessarily look for experience as much as that match and the energy and the attitude that we're looking for.
So yeah, and that's what I was going to sort of follow up. So, what are you looking for? You're looking for the cultural match, alignment and mindset, coachability. I always look for coachability. If someone is coachable and they're good communicators and they're compliant in that practice, you can really take anyone that's reasonably intelligent and show them sort of the nuts and bolts. But if they're not compliant, if they're not willing to learn, if they're not aligned with the mission statement of the company, you're going nowhere. I don't care how much experience they have. It's just not going to work. What does your current structure look like? Because, in the last 10 years, you've gone from 7, and I think I wrote down 204. Did I get that correct? Was it 204 units?
As of today, yeah.
As of today. So you've grown a lot in the last 10 years. By the way, I would consider that responsible growth. I know some people might say rapid, but I'm not big on, selling 500 franchises and opening 10. I like the idea that you got 204 open, you got 127 in the pipeline, most with experienced franchisees. To me, that's a great, responsible way to build a franchise system. But talk to me about the structure. Like, who do you have in that organization to help service and supply what you need to those franchisees?
Well, it's certainly we're very transparent. We're very high touch. Our mission is to provide opportunity to achieve the American dream of owning one's own business. Now, if we're going to do that, we need to provide the resources to folks who don't have the experience necessarily. And that's a big obligation.
Mm.
So we've always had a lot of people who are involved with ensuring that the franchisees have the resources available to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I read articles all the time about folks who are like, oh, they grew too fast, or they haven't seen growth. I don't think an organization can grow too fast.
Mm-hmm.
What they need to have is they need to have the resources and the team in place to deal with the growth. And that's got to be proactive. If you ever fall behind in your growth, where you're playing catch up to build the resources for your team, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah.
But you talk about Charles and Tropical Smoothie. I mean, who's to say that building 100, 200 shops a year is too fast or too slow?
Right.
He had the team to service it. No one can deny that because he was successful in doing it.
Absolutely. My company deals primarily with startups and emerging brands. And one of the things we have to constantly drill into our franchisor clients as they're learning to become franchisors, because as you mentioned earlier, the folks you purchased the company from were really good at the product end, but maybe they weren't good franchisors. So, or they weren't ready to be franchisors, because at the end of the day, we all know it's a different business. Your product is your product, and your customers are your franchisees, not the end user and the Asian food. That being said, we have this expression called, don't get over your skis, because a lot of these guys, they want to sell and they want to be able to pound their chest and say, we did this and we got 9,000 in development, but then the whole thing just collapses. And we all know the stories about Quiznos and Cold Stone and Burger IM and all of that stuff, where it's just, let's just sell franchises. So I'm with you 100%. So when you got there, obviously the management team at that point, or the internal team, must have been thin. At what point did you realize, oh, okay, I've got to either start from ground up or kind of keep the best of the best and build from there? Was it almost immediately? Did you sort of let it run for a couple of months and take a look? How did that work for you to get that team started?
Well, in building past franchisors, I have had to play catch up, and we're good at recruiting franchisees. We're extremely picky. Once again, they need to have the it factor to match the culture in the community. But right out of the gate, we just started building the team. Right now, we've got 70 people for 204 units. We're built and we're building for 300. We're not looking at 200. We want to have the team in place prior to our growth always. And it's having the right people on the team. You asked previously, what's the structure look like? It's having the people who are touching, being close to the franchisees. What are their needs? We serve the franchisees. We aren't developing products from the ivory tower here that we think are going to be a good idea. We're listening to the franchisees. What do they think? They're the ones talking to the customers every day. And if we don't have the people to do that, to be in constant communication and be able to constantly help the franchisees understand the best practices of the other franchisees, for example, then we're not doing our job. And that takes a lot of people to ensure that that we're there for the franchisees. So in this organization, we've done a really great job of always having a big internal team, because they need to be trained. They need to have the experience of being with Teriyaki Madness for a period of time before they're really effective. You can't just walk in the door and suddenly you're awesome, right? So we're constantly training, we're constantly growing, we're constantly focusing on the future.
Yeah, well, what I will say in response to what you just said, and it's really for the new franchisors that are listening to this, do me a favor, hit rewind and play back what Michael said about 10 times, okay? Because that is the essence and one of the critical key factors in building a successful franchise company. You serve the franchisee, you make the commitment, you invest the capital necessary to do that, and then you execute. And you also mentioned about, having the right people in place. If I recall, I think it was in Jim Collins' Good to Great, he talks about not only having the right people on the bus, but having them sitting in the right seat. And that's really where someone in your position in management and leadership has to come in and really find out what people are good at and playing to their strengths so that they can go out and really service the franchise community. What is some of the look, it all sounds nice. We're talking about it, but obviously in practice, it doesn't go like this. It kind of goes like this, probably. What are some of the bottlenecks, the operational bottlenecks that you've run into when you're building that team? An example might be the person that has their way of doing it, perhaps. Talk to us a little bit about the trials and tribulations of building that team.
Well, we're going to have some misfires, right? We're going to have some folks who come in the door who they might even match the culture in the community, but are they executing? Are they representing us in the way that we want to execute? I don't know if I call them bottlenecks, but they're setbacks. We typically give folks a reasonable amount of time to prove themselves. When you're hiring for culture and community and attitude, you're giving people a shot. What are they going to do when they come in the door? Mm-hmm. Are they going to respect the franchisees, or they're going to respect the people that came before them? And those are the setbacks. Is gosh, we've got to go ahead and take a step back. This isn't the right person. Let's release them to their destiny, or hopefully to go work for our competition. And then we have new people coming in. And look, a business is people. It's made up of people, and we're only as good as the people who are on the team and how we work together.
Yeah, without a doubt. How do you determine? Because you mentioned you have new people coming on board also. By the way, I love setbacks because I think a setback is a setup for a comeback. That's my little twist that I use. Kind of helps me overcome failure, which is always a great learning tool. But how do you determine sort of the right ratio of corporate support staff to the number of franchise locations? Not only for at that moment, but I'm sure you plan ahead for that 6 months, 7 months, 10 months, whatever. But is there a formula that you use, like one, I don't know, RDO for every 10 stores, or some, I don't know, how do you determine that?
I could tell you that there is, but there really isn't. We talk about that all the time. We try and create these metrics and these process, but it really comes down to case by case, because some franchisees want more support than others. Some need more support than others. We really listen to the employees. Are they overly stressed? Is there a reason why they aren't getting done what they said they would get done? We measure everything. We operate under EOS, so everyone has accountability. We know what their deliverables are on a regular basis. They design what they're going to deliver. And if they don't deliver because they don't have the bandwidth, or they don't think they're going to have the bandwidth, then we hire more people. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is. It's listening. You said earlier, coachability. We use the word humility. There's nothing stronger than confident people who are humble.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. Gratitude leads to humility, and that just kind of makes it all work. So I guess sort of as maybe a closing question, when you create a new support initiative, perhaps, or you bring new people on, how do you test it? How do you measure whether or not it's having a positive or negative effect in the franchise community?
Oh, that's a great question. So we look for ROI in everything we do, because we want to prioritize, because we don't want to just be doing everything. I think there's a lot of organizations that there's no priorities, and if there's no priorities, nothing really gets done. So we do that with people too. They're going to come in, we're going to agree to what they're going to get done. It's not necessarily how they're going to do it, and they either do it or they don't. I mean, it's pretty black and white. Those deliverables need to be very definitive. They need to be measurable, and everything that we do needs to be measurable. Now, once again, now we need to invest in the FP&A and the analytics. Are we really able to measure the results of our actions? That's a big piece to success is, people say what gets measured gets done, but it's really, did you make a mistake? And you're not seeing the results that you thought you'd see. And that goes for people and projects and investments. So you got me that was a great question, because that's the key to everything, because there's a difference between movement and motion.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked years ago, I was the franchisor for a fresh Mexican concept here in New York. And we actually brought in a CEO, and he was a former senior VP with Avado Brands. They were like a huge Applebee's, maybe the largest Applebee's franchisee in the country. And when I was in operations at that time, and I really don't like operations, but I was in ops at that time. And I remember he said to me, I want you to make sure that everyone in this restaurant, everyone on your staff is moving with purpose. They need to be moving with purpose, not just moving, okay? Because anybody could move around. And you can't measure that. But when they're moving with purpose and you're monitoring that against your budget, you're monitoring that against guest satisfaction, and you're measuring all of those things, you could not only build sales, but you could also control costs in a better way, and you can deliver a better experience for the guests. So I completely, wholeheartedly, 100% agree with what you just said. Actually, with everything you've said on the program. Any final thoughts on team building or Teriyaki Madness or really anything that you want to share with us?
No, I think you've asked. I thought it was going to be one question. This was more
It is.
than
Yeah, I know. It's kind of we lie. We say one question. It's really one topic, but the question is really sort of unfolds as we go along. If it was just one question, we'd be in and out of here in 3 minutes. And when we might not really attract any listeners. So if somebody wants to learn more about Teriyaki Madness or get in touch with the company, what's the best way to do that?
It's teriyakimadness.com. We've got a billion pages on our website, whether people want to eat our food or they want to explore franchising or they just want to talk to us. We're all very available.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. Truly appreciate it. I don't know if you're going to be in New York for the IFE exhibit, the franchise show that goes on at the Javits Center. If you are, perhaps I'll run into you. But truly, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.